Welcome to this rapid revision session looking at some exam skills for the Edexcel Paper 3. Question 1. What can you infer from a source? 4 marks. This video will be focused on the modern depth study Weimar and Nazi Germany 1918 to 1939. If you're one of my actual students, please don't panic. You won't be doing this topic, so you don't have to watch this video. You can go and watch something more useful. Here's a reminder about what the Pearson Edexcel Paper 3 is all about. This paper generally covers a modern depth study. An example of such a study is Weimar and Nazi Germany 1918 to 1939. This particular topic comprises Weimar Germany 1918 to 1933 and Nazi Germany 1933 to 1939. Other topics are similarly organised, e.g. the USA Civil Rights and Vietnam topic, which is referred to as Conflict at Home and Abroad 1954 to 1975. That's the topic that I do with my students. You'll answer questions on sources, your knowledge and interpretations within this paper. Therefore, there is a separate sources and interpretations sheet and booklet that you'll need to have for this paper. Make sure that you've got that at the start of the exam. The total time allowed for this exam is 1 hour and 20 minutes. Okay, so let's get into the question. Firstly, it's important to take notice of the instructions in this question so that you answer the correct questions and you answer enough questions. It says in section A, answer both questions. There will be 2. Next, it tells you which source to study. This is important because there is a source A, and then in a separate booklet there'll be a source B and C and the interpretations. So make sure you're focused on the correct question. Usually source A will be very close by, so it's hard to make a mistake. Let's have a look at source A now. Source A, From Hitler and I by Otto Strasser, published in 1940. Strasser was a leading member of the Nazi Party in its early years. Here he remembers a conversation with Hitler in 1925. I remember one of the first conversations with him. It was nearly a quarrel. Power, screamed Adolf. We must have power. Before we gain it, I replied firmly, let us understand what we propose to do with it. Our program is too vague. We must construct something which will last. Hitler, who even then could hardly bear contradiction, thumped the table, saying sharply, power first. Afterwards, we can act as events occur. I hope you enjoyed my attempt at a German accent there. If you didn't, well, sorry. Here's the question to go with it then. Give 2 things that you can infer from source A about Hitler's leadership of the Nazi Party in the 1920s. The key bit about this question here is the inquiry that you have to be focused on. This should be about Hitler's leadership of the Nazi Party in the 1920s. If it's not focused on that, then your inferences simply won't be valid and you will not get the marks. So this question is assessing your source analysis skills. That's known as Assessment Objective 3 and should take you only about 6 minutes to do, although many of my students manage to get these done quite a bit sooner, which provides you with a few minutes extra for the longer answers later in paper 3. A reminder of the mark scheme then. The target is source analysis, AO3, and all 4 marks go for that. Here's how you answer. Award 1 mark for each valid inference up to a maximum of 2 inferences, and they must be valid. So again, they must be about Hitler's leadership of the Nazi Party. The second mark for each example should be awarded for supporting detail selected from the source. This might be a quote. When you come to answer this question, you'll see a form like this. This is pretty helpful. Not only does it save you writing things like what I can infer and detail in the source that tells me this, it shows you exactly where to write it, and as long as you filled in every section, you've got a good chance of getting 4 marks as long as it's all valid. If there are any gaps, however, you'll know to go back and fill them. We're going to answer this question now. So here's our question, our source, and where we're going to start writing our answer. If you'd prefer to answer this question before you see my suggestions, you can pause the video now and give it a go, and then compare it to my examples. If not, let's carry on. Here's my first inference, and remember, an inference should go beyond the obvious. I can infer that Hitler was very aggressive and bullying in his leadership. Detail in the source that tells me this, the source says the conversation was nearly a quarrel and that Hitler screamed, which is aggressive. There we go, there's nearly a quarrel within the source and the fact that Adolf Hitler screamed. So I get a mark for this because this inference is directly linked to leadership. Remember the question rather says things you can infer from source A about Hitler's leadership. And the second is a valid supporting detail from the source, in this case a couple of quotes. Let's have a look at the next section. What shall I do for my next inference? See what you think of these. I can infer that some Nazis wanted the party's beliefs to be better known and understood. The source says that Strasser thought the Nazi program was too vague. What do you think of this then? Is this correct? I'm afraid not. No, I wouldn't get any marks for that because look, the question is saying things you can infer from source A about Hitler's leadership of the Nazi party. This isn't about Hitler's leadership, it's about the Nazi party beliefs. Because this is not a valid inference, it would not get a mark, and therefore my supporting detail is irrelevant as well. That's 0 marks for this inference here. So let's see if I can bring it round. Now I'll have a look at my second inference properly. I can infer that Hitler was determined for complete control of the party and his leadership from the start. The source says that even then, Hitler could hardly bear contradiction, meaning that nobody could disagree with his views. Alright, there's the bit from the source that I've chosen. And where do I get the marks? Well, that's a valid inference related to Hitler's leadership, and that's a valid supporting statement taken from the source. So 2 marks for that as well. 4 out of 4 in total. Some final points then. What can you infer questions should be easy marks. You simply need to identify 2 valid inferences based upon the stated inquiry and focus, and that's the only real place that you can be tripped up here. And you will need to support them with valid details from the source. Remember, if you haven't got a valid inference based upon the stated inquiry, you can't then choose a valid detail from the source, so make sure you do the first bit correctly. It should take no longer than 6 minutes, but as I've said already, you'll probably find that you won't need quite as long as that. Remember though that this question could be on either part of your studies. If you're doing Germany, it could be on either Weimar or Nazi Germany. That's the end of this exam skills session. I hope it's been useful to you, and if it has, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you've got a comment that you want to make, or if you've got a request for something else for me to do a rapid revision video on, pop it down below. Although I don't actually teach Weimar and Nazi Germany anymore, my knowledge on it is pretty good, and as long as I've got the time, I'll try and put something together for you. Though please be understanding that, of course, my own students have got to come first, and so you might be waiting a little bit longer. But hey, if you don't ask, you'll never know. Thanks very much for watching, and goodbye.